I think that change is scary in general, especially in a time where we need stability more than ever. And it's kind of like that fork in the that circle of a question where it's like we need change.
Grace VanderWaal once had the world holding its breath. A 12-year-old with a ukulele who turned a simple song into a global sensation. But years after winning America's Got Talent, her name faded from the spotlight. Now, she's back in the headlines. Not for a new single, but for something far more personal. Grief, transformation, and rediscovery. So what really happened to Grace after AGT? Grab a seat as we uncover the untold story behind her silence, her struggles, and her remarkable comeback. Grace VanderWaal mourns the death of Mom Tina. The news broke quietly, not through a press release or an official statement, but through Grace VanderWaal's trembling words on Instagram, words soaked in heartbreak. On October 21st, the America's Got Talent winner shared that her mother, Tina VanderWaal, had passed away after a long private battle with breast cancer. The post was raw, painfully human. "I can't yet find the words," she wrote. "I love you, Mommy, so much. I wake up and want to call you. I don't know how to move forward without you. I love you." The caption sat beneath a carousel of tender moments. Childhood photos, laughter caught in motion, fragments of a life Grace clearly adored but could no longer reach. Fans flooded the comment section with condolences, but one stood out, from Howie Mandel, the judge whose golden buzzer had changed Grace's life back in 2016. Beneath her post, he left a simple but powerful message. "Your mother would be so proud of the woman you've become." Those words carried extra weight. After all, it was Howie who had first seen the spark in that shy 12-year-old with a ukulele, the same girl whose voice would soon echo across the world. Grace's father, Dave VanderWaal, also broke his silence in a deeply emotional Facebook tribute. "Tina truly was the heart of our family," he wrote. "She filled our lives with creativity, laughter, and love. She brought light and joy to everything she touched." His words painted a picture of a woman who wasn't just a mother, but the creative pulse of the family. The quiet force who helped shape Grace's confidence long before fame found her. To those who've followed Grace's career, Tina was more than just a supportive parent. She was the grounding presence in an unpredictable world of flashing lights and expectations. From Grace's earliest interviews, she often spoke about her mom's gentle guidance, how Tina encouraged her to write songs from her own heart, to never chase fame for fame's sake. Their bond was evident, not in grand gestures, but in the quiet moments Grace often shared online. Car rides filled with laughter, candid behind-the-scenes photos, or late-night songwriting sessions where her mom's voice could occasionally be heard in the background. The loss, then, felt seismic. For someone like Grace, who had already retreated from the noise of celebrity life, Tina's passing seemed to deepen that silence. Friends close to her described her as withdrawn but reflective, channeling grief into music and poetry rather than interviews or public appearances. Some fans noticed she deleted older posts, trimmed her social media presence, and began speaking less about her career and more about self-discovery. But beneath the quiet, something else was happening. Those who listened closely could sense that this heartbreak wasn't the end of her story. It was a turning point. Tina's death seemed to spark a more mature, introspective version of Grace, one that sought meaning beyond applause. Her absence became both an ache and a catalyst, pushing Grace to rethink her path as an artist and as a person. In 2024, her silence wasn't just grief. It was transformation in motion, a quiet rebuilding of identity after losing the woman who helped her find her voice in the first place. To understand how that transformation began, we have to return to where it all started, the moment the world first met Grace VanderWaal. keep watching. Why Grace disappeared after AGT. When Grace VanderWaal first walked onto the America's Got Talent stage in 2016, the world wasn't prepared for what was about to happen. A 12-year-old girl with a shy smile, a ukulele in hand, and a voice that carried the rawness of truth. She sang "I Don't Know My Name" and silenced the audience. It wasn't just a performance, it was a moment. The song's haunting simplicity, paired with lyrics about identity and belonging, felt years beyond her age. Howie Mandel hit the golden buzzer, sending her straight to the live shows. And overnight, Grace became a global sensation. Her audition video went viral, surpassing hundreds of millions of views, a level of attention few AGT contestants had ever achieved. Her debut EP, Perfectly Imperfect, topped charts in 2016, solidifying her as more than a one-hit wonder. Grace was invited to perform at the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade, the Special Olympics, and even the top of the Empire State Building. She signed with Columbia Records, graced red carpets, and was hailed as the next big thing, the young Taylor Swift with a ukulele. But fame, especially at that age, carries a cost that isn't visible under the spotlight. For Grace, it didn't take long for the bright lights to blur into noise. The sudden exposure, the expectations, the constant scrutiny, they all began to weigh heavily. She was growing up while the world watched, and every change, every new look, every lyric was analyzed, debated, and often misunderstood. Fans who once adored her innocence began criticizing her maturity. When she cut her hair short, changed her fashion sense, and started experimenting with darker, edgier sounds, the internet reacted harshly. Comment sections filled with remarks claiming she had changed too much, or worse, that Hollywood got to her. Grace, however, wasn't spiraling. She was evolving. Yet the public wasn't ready to let her grow up. Like many child stars before her, she found herself trapped between who people wanted her to remain and who she was becoming. Instead of fighting back publicly, she chose silence. Over time, her social media posts became sparse, her public appearances fewer, and her interviews rare. Fans began asking, where did Grace VanderWaal go? But her absence wasn't a collapse. It was a conscious retreat. In interviews before her hiatus, Grace hinted at feeling creatively confined, wanting space to rediscover her sound and self away from the constant noise of fame. During this quiet period, she continued to make music, though on her own terms. Her second EP, Letters Volume 1, showcased a more mature Grace, introspective, emotionally layered, and fearless in her experimentation. While it didn't dominate mainstream charts like her debut, it resonated deeply with her loyal followers who understood that this was a young artist choosing authenticity over attention. Her silence became her statement. In a world obsessed with visibility, Grace chose invisibility for a while, not out of fear but self-preservation. She'd learned what many stars discovered too late. Constant exposure doesn't equal growth. Behind closed doors, she was learning, grieving, and writing. The girl who once didn't know her name was now learning who she truly was. Not as a viral prodigy, but as a young woman finding peace in privacy. Grace didn't fade away. She simply stepped out of the spotlight long enough to reclaim her light. And when she finally returned, the world was stunned by what they saw. But what was it the world discovered? Let's find out. Reinventing the girl who didn't know her name. Grace VanderWaal was never meant to stay the same. The soft-spoken prodigy who once strummed a ukulele under golden stage lights had outgrown her own legend. The world remembered her as the shy 12-year-old with a raspy voice and a heart full of innocence. But Grace had already moved on. The girl who once sang about not knowing her name was now rewriting it, piece by piece, with a sound and style that shocked those who thought they knew her best. Her quiet retreat after America's Got Talent wasn't just about rest, it was about rebirth. Away from the public eye, Grace began experimenting, searching for a version of herself that wasn't bound by nostalgia or public expectation. What emerged from that solitude was an artist far more daring and unpredictable than anyone expected. Her early music had been sweet and simple, almost fragile. But the new Grace wanted to explore weightier emotions, the kind that couldn't be captured in a 3-minute song written by a child prodigy. That creative shift started subtly. After her chart-topping EP Perfectly Imperfect established her as a global sensation, Grace released her first full-length album, Just the Beginning. The title said it all. It was a bold declaration that her career was not a fleeting fairy tale, but an unfolding journey. The album carried traces of her youthful sound but leaned into more mature melodies and introspective lyrics. Each track hinted at a growing confidence, an artist willing to test limits and leave comfort zones behind. By 2019, the evolution had become impossible to ignore. Her next EP, Letters Volume 1, marked a complete break from her earlier innocence. The production was darker, the lyrics more personal, and her voice carried the edge of someone who had lived through both love and loss. Gone were the dreamy tunes of childhood. In their place came the raw honesty of late adolescence. Fans who listened closely could hear the transition. Grace wasn't chasing pop trends, she was chasing authenticity. But as her art deepened, so did the divide between her and her early audience. Many who once adored her wide-eyed charm struggled to accept her transformation. Social media was flooded with comments questioning her new image. Her decision to cut her hair short, adopt a bolder fashion sense, and speak more openly about identity and gender sparked criticism from those who wanted her to remain the same sweet girl from 2016. For a young artist, such scrutiny could have been crushing, but Grace leaned into it. Tweeting again, she expanded her creative reach. Signing with IMG models, she entered the world of fashion, a space as demanding and expressive as music. Her striking features and avant-garde energy quickly caught the attention of brands like Kate Spade, Marc Jacobs, and Chanel. Campaigns and photo shoots replaced red carpets and TV spots. To some, it seemed she was reinventing herself completely. To others, she was simply expressing what had always been inside her, an artist unwilling to be defined by one medium or one image. Still, the question lingered among fans and critics alike. Was Grace evolving or escaping? Was this her true form, or just another mask worn to protect the girl who once bared her soul on stage? The truth might lie somewhere in between. Reinvention for Grace wasn't about erasing the past, it was about claiming ownership of her story. She wasn't running from her fame, she was reshaping it into something more personal, more human, and infinitely more real. Through every haircut, every lyric, and every creative risk, Grace VanderWaal wasn't losing herself. She was finally finding the name she'd been searching for all along. But just when fans thought she had left music behind, Grace surprised everyone again. This time, in a way no one saw coming. Keep watching. The Disney Dilemma, Stardom and Silence. Just as the world began wondering where Grace VanderWaal had gone, she reappeared, but not on stage. This time, it was on screen. In 2020, Grace made her acting debut in the Disney Plus original film Stargirl, playing the lead role of Stargirl Caraway, a free-spirited teenager who follows her heart, sings when she feels it, and challenges conformity through kindness. It was a role that felt written for her almost as if art had imitated life. Stargirl's eccentricity, her soft-spoken confidence, her refusal to fit in, it all echoed the real Grace. For millions who had missed her music, seeing her light up the screen felt like watching her rediscover her own stage, just in a different form. Critics and fans alike praised her performance, noting how natural she seemed in front of the camera. She wasn't trying to be Meryl Streep, she was simply Grace, real, unpolished, and magnetic. Her portrayal added depth to a film that could easily have slipped into cliché. Reviewers described her as the heart of the story and a rare screen presence who doesn't need to act. She just feels. For a first-time actress, that kind of praise was rare. Disney seemed to agree. Almost immediately, they greenlit a sequel, Hollywood Stargirl, released in 2022, a project written specifically to showcase her growing talent. Unlike the first film, which was based on a novel, Hollywood Stargirl was built entirely around Grace's persona. It followed her character's journey to Los Angeles to chase music and self-discovery, mirroring Grace's real-life path toward artistic independence. Fans adored the symbolism. It felt like Grace was telling her story through fiction. The girl who once didn't know her name, now finding her voice again, both on screen and off. But then, without warning, both movies vanished. In mid-2023, Disney quietly removed Stargirl and its sequel from Disney Plus as part of a sweeping content purge that affected dozens of titles worldwide. The official explanation was financial. A $1.8 billion write-off meant to make the streaming division more profitable. Yet, for Grace's fans, it felt personal. Two films that had showcased her transition from musician to actress were suddenly inaccessible, erased from the platform that once promoted them. The reaction online was swift and emotional. Supporters accused Disney of burying her work, while others speculated that corporate decisions had once again interrupted her career momentum. How could a studio that once celebrated her talent now remove both films without warning? For an artist already known for disappearing acts, this felt like another forced silence. Not her choice this time, but the industry's. Still, amid the frustration, one truth stood out. Even when her projects vanished, Grace's impact didn't. Clips of Stargirl scenes flooded TikTok. Fan edits resurfaced on YouTube, and her quiet resilience reminded everyone that visibility isn't the same as relevance. Grace didn't fight Disney's decision publicly. Instead, she seemed to move on, using the setback as another quiet reinvention. Once again, external forces had shaped her path, but Grace VanderWaal had learned something crucial. Even when the world takes away your stage, you can still write your own script. And just when the noise began to fade, a new chapter was quietly taking shape, one that revealed Grace's true voice beyond the music. Her next move said it all. Between activism and accusations. After the quiet storm of her Disney chapter, Grace VanderWaal's focus began to shift toward something deeper, using her platform for change. Away from red carpets and premieres, she threw herself into causes that mattered to her. Long before fame ever complicated her life, Grace had always believed in the power of music to heal. And she proved it by donating a large portion of her America's Got Talent winnings to music charities that supported creative education for children. It was a move that reminded fans she hadn't forgotten her roots. The same girl with the ukulele, still trying to make the world sound a little softer. In 2018, Grace traveled to Kenya with the Starkey Hearing Foundation, a humanitarian organization that provides hearing aids and support for children with hearing loss. Photos from that trip showed her not as a celebrity, but as a humble volunteer, sitting cross-legged among kids, learning their songs, helping fit hearing devices, and listening more than she spoke. Her compassion felt genuine, her joy unfiltered. She later described the trip as life-changing, an experience that deepened her belief in using art and empathy to connect with people far beyond the stage. Her activism extended to mental health and equality too. Grace performed at events for the Trevor Project, a nonprofit supporting LGBTQIA+ youth, and often spoke about self-acceptance and identity. Her message seemed clear. Grace was no longer just an entertainer. She was an advocate, finding purpose through impact. But just as fans began to celebrate her as a new voice of empowerment, controversy found her again. It started with a now-deleted Instagram post where she passionately addressed misogyny and the unrealistic expectations placed on young female artists. "Why does it make people so uncomfortable to see girls grow into women?" she asked. The statement was raw, unfiltered, and unapologetically feminist, and it went viral. Yet only weeks later, Grace found herself in another spotlight, this time a less flattering one. A short clip from her social media spread online, showing her joking that she'd never disrespect herself by paying on a date. Critics pounced. Some accused her of hypocrisy, others of immaturity. The internet, as usual, split in two, one side defending her honesty, the other questioning her contradictions. To her credit, Grace never issued a formal apology. She simply carried on, a little wiser, a little more private. Maybe that's what makes her story so fascinating. Grace VanderWaal isn't a saint or a scandal. She's both at once. A young woman still learning how to balance conviction with imperfection, growing up under a spotlight that never seems to dim. So what happens when controversy shapes conviction? Could Grace turn chaos into clarity? Let's find out. Stay with us as her next chapter unfolds. Grace's next act, from grief to growth. The controversies, the silence, the shifting spotlight, all of it seemed to shape Grace VanderWaal into someone calmer, wiser, and more self-assured. After years of transformation, she's now stepping into a new phase, one that blends her pain, purpose, and creativity into something remarkably grounded. While the public still debates her choices, Grace has quietly been building the next chapter of her story, on her own terms. Her social media, once erratic and uncertain, has taken on a quieter confidence. Small glimpses of studio sessions and snippets of unreleased songs have reignited curiosity among fans. The lyrics sound different now, heavier, more reflective, as if she's writing directly from the ache of loss and the lessons that followed. Her music no longer seeks validation, it seeks meaning. It's as though the grief of losing her mother and the noise of fame have finally distilled her voice into something pure, deliberate, and deeply personal. And while many assumed she'd left Hollywood behind, Grace is making a striking return, not as a child prodigy, but as a mature artist stepping into cinema's grandest arena. She's been cast in Megalopolis, the upcoming film by legendary director Francis Ford Coppola, alongside stars like Adam Driver, Aubrey Plaza, and Shia LaBeouf. For a girl who began with a ukulele and a dream, sharing the screen with Hollywood heavyweights feels like a poetic full circle. The quiet kid who once sang about not knowing her name is now shaping a legacy under one of cinema's greatest directors. Still, Grace doesn't seem interested in reclaiming the fame she once had. Maybe she never disappeared. Maybe she just grew beyond the version the world wanted her to be. And in doing so, she finally found herself. So what if Grace VanderWaal's silence wasn't the end, but the beginning of her boldest chapter yet? We'd like to hear your thoughts. Don't forget to stay tuned, subscribe, and join the conversation.